232, January 20th, 2026, right now marks 2020 hours of progress on the global horror simulation. Currently, the voxel system has been made to send information to the shader system, and currently the shader can tell where the voxels are, and voxels that are a certain distance from the player have pixels that are closest to them highlighted a certain color, and by default, voxels that are not anywhere near the player are colored dark, and so there are two different systems going on here. One for the floor, as the floor actually has the line of sight system on it, although the intention is to sort of, going forward, is to figure out a way to have the line of sight for the floor blocked, depending on if the player should not be able to see behind a wall, and the idea for that is to use the voxel system. However, the voxel system using that on the floor did not prove to be very useful, as that decreases the performance considerably, because currently the frames per second is around 200, and then switching the floor to the same system as the rest of the geometry, the frames per second drops down to around 40 to 50. So the intention going forward is to find a way to make the floors voxels scale performantly, as currently the floor has the most amount of voxels out of any of the objects. So as a demonstration, looking at the scene, most objects have a couple dozen voxels, although the floor itself has exactly 800 voxels. And so the intention going forward is to update the shader to not test against every single voxel on the object, but try and use perhaps a box tree. And that was a crash report there, which seems to be occurring whenever that other script that every other object has is enabled onto the floor. And so the intention going forward is to get the line of sight and both the voxel systems working together so that pixels that are behind walls are not highlighted. And another part of this that was observed was that the occlusion system had to be changed, as originally a duplicate version of an object had its mesh render enabled, although that causes flickering, which was seen in the last video, and so the entire mesh would be flickering, as that part there is, which was caused by having a duplicate version of the mesh at the same position. And even if the other mesh, which the idea was to have a mesh that is the exact same dimensions as one mesh, but then that mesh is faded, has its material set to a different opacity, and then just toggle their materials whenever the player is blocked, then toggle that other one, but that caused the entire object to have as pixels were fighting. And so the intention going forward is to just try and create a one shader that handles the fading of the object along with the line of sight highlighting and along with the voxels. That's the good thing is currently the voxel information is set from the object to the shader, and now the intention is to just figure out how to get that all working together in a seamless way that is optimized.